Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I appreciate you joining me today. This video is going to be a little different than anything I've ever done before, but I watched one of my favorite pieces of content I have ever seen to date this past week. I'm a huge fan of this guy. His name is Dr. K, also known as Healthy Gamer GG, but he is a Harvard psychiatrist who also is training to be a Buddhist monk for 7 years and really blends a lot of both of these practices together to both be an accomplished psychiatrist, but also an accomplished performance coach as well. And this video was on the iced coffee hour, so I will link that in the description. It is almost a 3-hour conversation, but I wanted to give you my top 10 takeaways that I wanted to translate into your professional success. But the whole podcast, I highly recommend watching. It is called The Number One Shortcut to Getting Rich, Winning at Life, and Finding Your Soulmate. So there's a lot of different things covered, but here's my top 10 takeaways. Before we dive into each one, we're going to talk about what is happiness, the fact that you are not broken, you are mismatched with your environment. Happiness delayed is often happiness denied. Mental illness is often temporary and treatable. Emotions are survival tools, not flaws. Don't trust your normal. You might be operating at a 6 out of 10 life. Stop feeding your anxieties. Every time you indulge them, they grow stronger. Perfectionism is the silent killer of mental health. And most people misdiagnose themselves because they don't understand probabilities. Okay. So, with that, let's go ahead and dive in with starting with what is happiness. So, Dr. K explains that happiness is often one pointedness of the mind. So, this is when you're in a state of complete mental absorption. Think when you are in flow state, when you're working, when you have a bite of delicious food and just nothing else is in your brain other than that. When you're playing a video game and you're not worried about your family, your job, your pets, your wife, you are just focused on the video game. It doesn't matter what it is, but when you have this one pointedness of the mind, this is when you generally recall that these are the happiest moments of your life. When something happens, there is a stimulus. That stimulus makes everything else in your life disappear. And that's what it is. Okay. And I think that this is brilliant because this gives you something that you can aim for and things that you can recognize, right? And about what we're talking about here. And the biggest misconceptions, right, is that people have around this is that happiness comes from external achievements or external objects, right? So you believe that buying a house or getting a promotion or earning more money will create happiness, right? Where really these things just momentarily reduce mental activity, which feels like happiness. Okay. But it's not real happiness. It's when you have that one pointiness in the mind, when you are fully focused in the present moment. That is what we are shooting for. So if you are not able to do that at your job, at your work, and it is whatever you are investing your time, effort, and energy, if your mind is still scattering while you are doing the thing, negative. That is not what's bringing you happiness. So that is a sign that you need to change something. The other thing that lots of people fall into as a misconception is I'll be happy when fill in the blank, right? Happiness is a future event. This is especially victimized or not victimized, but this is especially impactful to entrepreneurs and high achievers, right? You keep moving the goalposts and are like, well, if I finally make, $100,000 a year, I'll be happy. And when I finally get to a VP position, I'll be happy. And when my business grows to, a 7-figure income, then I'll be happy. No, right? Like you could be happy right now. Straight up in this moment. That is what it is. Again, happiness is the one pointedness of the mind because you aren't feeling sadness, anger, distraction, anxiety, depression, right? When you have something that is all absorbing to put you into the moment for a focused period of time, that is what we are aiming for happiness. And if you are unable to do that, then again, you need to change something. The other and final biggest misconception here is that happiness is the absence of problems. People believe that peace and happiness comes from resolving all of your life's problems. But really, it comes in learning to sit with the unresolved uncertainty because that is life. You will never have certainty in everything. Okay? You don't need problems solved to be at peace. Ironically, you probably will be at peace solving or working towards solving the problems. That's what it is. It's not that your problems are gone. It's that you are working towards your problems continuously, and they're meaningful problems to you because you've identified them as a problem. You are working towards fixing them. You will lose yourself in fixing them and slowly just build those milestones of continuing to go up the ladder. Okay. So what do we want to do here? What is our outcome? What are actionable tangibles here? It's going to be cultivating one-pointedness, right? So practice fully engaging in whatever you're doing, whether it's work or play or relationships. Like I said, it doesn't have to be all on some productive, societal, overachieving thing. It can be when you are eating your food, take that bite and just savor the shit out of it, right? It can be when you are with your partner, with your wife, with your child, your husband, your brother, your father, your mother, right? Be there with them. Cultivate that one-pointedness of being in the moment. It's that simple. Thoughts aren't real. How many thoughts do you have every single day that are just nonsense, right? But so there's no need to let yourself get caught up with them. You know, like I'm pretty sure we've all asked some ridiculous questions, like, like what if the sky was purple? Did that take hold of you? Did that change your whole life? Right? Why do we let any thought at any time consume us? Learn to be where you are, where your feet are on the ground. Okay. Stop outsourcing your happiness to other objects, things like social media, video games, shopping, or just temporary hits of focus and distraction, right? Train yourself to find the satisfaction in the moment. You can do this through meditation. You can do this by identifying what is the problem that you are solving, and is that problem meaningful, and if so, how, right? Taking things to the second, third, fourth order degree of impact, not just, oh, well, guess I got to do my spreadsheet updates here. I got to do my monthly end closing, or I got to, just put together another widget here for my company. No, but what problem is that solving, and is it meaningful to you? And if it's not meaningful to you, then what is going to be meaningful to you? And work towards the thing that is going to be meaningful, and accepting the uncertainty and the lack of resolution. Okay? Next big insight. You are not broken, you are mismatched with your environment. Again, from Dr. K, right? So we evolved as humans in small tribal environments with low exposure to rejection and comparison, right? So this is what I really appreciate about a lot of his things is I wouldn't quite say they are first principles, but he brings things down to either first principles or almost like biological and evolutionary first principles. And this is what I really appreciate, and why things are so impactful from him. So if you think, right, we were in tribes of tens of people, hundreds of people. So like how many times are you like rejected or sitting there comparing, and how many people do you see that are thriving beyond you, right? But now you see on social media the constant, tens of thousands of millionaires that used to just be silent millionaires are now flaunting it, or the hundreds of thousands of millionaires in this country, the thousands of billionaires, right, in this country, or the people that have many, many women, or on the women's side, you see people who have the perfect husband that you're looking for, right? Like there's constant comparison. Dating apps is just a constant source of rejection. Right now in the job market, constant source of rejection. These are tools, these are biological things that we have not really been equipped to. So you need to train yourself to overcome these sorts of things, right? So this doesn't mean that you are broken and that you have some permanent flaw, right? Like you can fix this without changing your environment super heavily, right? You need to understand that the high exposure rate of rejection and comparison is normal. It will build resilience, but you got to understand that we weren't involved to do this. So what are we going to do? What is our tactical takeaway here? That if you are feeling overwhelmed by this mismatch of your environment biologically and how we evolved into where we're at now in this hyper connected and overstimulated world. So the first is you're just going to reduce your exposure to constant comparison. So again, reduce the social media, reduce the dating apps, potentially even reduce online gaming, because that's even going to be another form of comparison, right? So reduce the external exposure to these rejection comparison scenarios that the modern age enables. Okay. You're going to build intentional, smaller social circles that are ultimately built on a reality of support, right? So instead of being like, oh my God, I got a phone book here of, 100 people that I talk to once every 5 years. narrow it down to like your top 5 or 10 that you interact with constantly, that are always there. You guys are just ping ponging off of each other ideas and things to do and where to go and how to go about it and where things are working and not working, but like deep, meaningful, intentional relationships, right? And then even if you are comparing to people, you're comparing to people you know that are working alongside the path of you and are also probably willing to uplift you to where they are at, instead of just like this nothingness comparison of where you're at. And focus on real world tactical, like tactile, touch, taste, smell, 5 senses style experiences, right? As opposed to this digital doom scrolling of LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and etc., right? That's like this, like, it's real, but it's also like in your mind, it's like this hypothetical thing, right? Like focus on your real world experiences and comparison. And this will reduce that negative impact that your environment has on you. Okay. We're going to circle back to happiness for the next one. Happiness delayed is often happiness denied. This is going back to that I'll be happy when, or it constant moving the goalpost. This next goalpost will get me happy. And people believe that when they achieve success, they will get happiness. But the thing is your definition of success is exactly that, an arbitrary definition of success that you have created. Happiness is a biological concoction of things occurring in your mind. So what makes you think that your logical or your preferential definition of success is going to trigger said concoction that's a biological reaction? These are decoupled things, right? Like this was a brilliant insight from me, from Dr. K a while ago, right? But like I said, this podcast was just so impactful for me that I felt I wanted to encourage every single person that watches this video to go listen to it. But if you also wanted kind of my top 10, that's what we're diving into here. And so people are under this assumption they can sacrifice their well-being and sacrifice their happiness for a promised better tomorrow. And that's just, you are just often delaying. This is the source of sort of that midlife crisis, right? Is that you've now evolved and achieved success, because most people aren't successful until that midlife, until mid 30s to mid 40s. And I know mid 30s is a very young midlife crisis, but like I'd say like 35 to like 50 is when people start to achieve success. And so then they're like, oh, sweet. Why aren't I happy now? Right? Like that's what we think, where we should be cultivating happiness all along the way. And so what we are trying to do here, how we resolve or overcome this happiness delayed is often happiness denied misconception here, is throughout your entire life and throughout your daily experience, integrate the moments of joy and happiness into the journey, not just the end goal. Figure out how to fall in love with the process. So let's take something simple, fitness. If you're somebody who, again, you're not trying to get ripped and jacked, but you're like, you know what, like, I just don't want to be like unhealthy. I got some blood work back. There's a couple things I want to correct. So I'm going to do like a little bit of workout. Instead of being like, I need my blood work to come down, that then I will be happy. It's just, all right, I did my workout today. Like, I'm going to appreciate that. That was awesome. That felt good, right? Integrate those moments of joy. Celebrate those small wins. Train your brain to recognize success. Because here's the other thing. Your brain's ability to recognize is also a trained muscle. And this is proven by, take something simple as like, optical illusions, right? Like when you see them and you are trained as to what they are, your brain can recognize those illusions faster. Like we are built for pattern recognition. That is why we can identify things that are bad. Trauma hits so deep is because we recognize, here is the thing that led to this trauma. What led up to that? Now that what led up to that, I'm going to avoid in the future, or recognize in the future to prevent the bad thing from happening again. Or, hey, I worked out, so I moved more, ate less. I then achieved my goal. I'm going to rinse and repeat this pattern of success to get to success, right? So it's all pattern recognition. So if you train yourself to recognize and appreciate those small wins, you will naturally do it more. But initially, it takes some training and won't be organic. So that's what you need to do, is recognize your like micro wins, your tiny wins on a daily basis. Train yourself to recognize those things and go from there. Okay. Next insight. Mental illness is often temporary and treatable, not a life sentence. This is one of the things where I really like Dr. K, because he's the blend of Eastern medicine, Buddhist monk training with the trained psychiatry and medical background as well. And so, a couple different things that he cites here, right, is, that a lot of mental health conditions are not lifelong. People believe they are, or the way that the medical system treats them with medication and things makes them a lifelong sentence, but they aren't, right? So people believe that once they're diagnosed, like they're just forced to suffer with it. I myself was diagnosed with quote unquote incurable depression. And do I have like small bouts of sadness at this point? Yeah. Guess what? I'm human. I feel things. There are periods in my life where things suck. I don't want to dive too far into that because I'm going to dive into it further here in our next section about depression. But I just wanted to give that personal example where it's human to feel your emotions. Okay. So mental health struggles are not static. Okay. Medication is not the only long-term solution. Mental health is not purely genetic. Okay. You can resolve these things by having behavioral and lifestyle interventions before jumping to medication. You can understand how your environment plays a huge, huge role, right? And then pursue long-term therapy, coaching, personal growth mechanisms, whether it's with somebody else or without somebody else, right? And overcome these things. So, one of the things that he cites in there is that BPD, borderline personality disorder, I believe is what that one is, right? 96 to 99% of people diagnosed with this will not test positive for it 16 years later. 50% of people no longer have it just 2 years later. A lot of depression and anxiety are resolved by changing your diet and changing your lifestyle in terms of working out and activity, right? Like these are things. Meditation helps significantly, right? There's so many things that will do this. Focusing on the fact that you are not a static person, that you could continuously grow, you could continuously upskill yourself, you can continuously build your relationships, you can build things that are more meaningful, right? These lifestyle changes without medication and without external help, and with external help, both are massive, massive sources of curing what most people believe to be a mental illness. And that leads into the depression side of the equation. Okay. So, our next couple ones are going to be almost like sub sections of what I just set the tone for there. That mental illness is often temporary and treatable, not a life sentence. So here's one. Are you depressed, or is your life just actually terrible? Right? So people believe that feeling unhappy always means it's a chemical imbalance or that medication is needed. Even if your life circumstances are actually just terrible, or that emotional distress is always a personal flaw, not a situational indicator. Okay. That is the biggest misconception, right? So I'm actually going to tie this in with another one that I want to point out here, which is going to be that depression in and of itself is actually a survival tool. Okay. What happens when you are depressed? You're not motivated. You don't really want to eat. You don't really want to get out of bed. You don't want to take action, right? Like these are the symptoms of depression. Okay. So what do all those things have in common biologically? They are a resource preservation mechanism. Okay. So that means that your body biologically is saying, hey, the output that we have been doing up to this point is not getting the result that we were intending or that would make this worthwhile for the biological cost. So depression isn't the problem. It's what you are putting your outputs into that is the problem, and said output from that. It's an input output equation issue. Okay. So, and then you have the other flaw, which is, or other side of this is just what if your life actually is just terrible? What if you're in an abusive relationship? What if you are self loathing? What if you are self hating? Right? What if you're in a toxic relationship? What if you had terrible parents and terrible friends? What if you have no friends? Right? You're going to feel depressed because your life is terrible. Right? Like, and then I'm not saying that it's terrible by my definition. Your body is biologically reacting to it being terrible, which means it is terrible by your own definition and requirement for fulfillment. Okay. So what you do to overcome this is first, just conduct a life audit. Evaluate your relationships, your career, your finances, your daily habits. Like, just audit down, like, what is it that are good, bad, ugly, awesome? What do I like? What do I dislike? What is working well, not working well? Like, take the time to do this audit. Okay. Then identify from your perspective, like, man, if I could change this tomorrow, that would be huge. Then start making that change. And you don't have to start big. I'm going to go away from Dr. K for a second and go to one of my favorite Jordan Peterson scenarios that he gave, is that he had a lot of success with getting people to go to the gym and work out by starting small. They don't actually go to the gym. They don't even work out. They started with, I'm going to lay out my workout clothes and I'm going to put them on. I'm going to do that every day. Then it went to, okay, now I'm going to put on my workout clothes. And if they didn't have an at-home gym, but it was like one they had to drive to, I'm either going to go to my workout area that's at the house, or I'm going to drive to the gym. And I'm going to do that for a week. Then I'm going to go in it, and whether it's at home or in the gym, I'm going to do 5 minutes. And then I'm going to do 15 minutes. And then I'm going to do 30 minutes. And then I'm going to do, and here's the thing. If you did each of those for a week, we're talking within 6 to 8 weeks, you have already built the habit and the mechanism and all of the prerequisites to now achieve your goal. This is the same thing. So if you're evaluating, your relationships or your career or your finances, it's about starting small, having the courage to come out of that audit and go, what's the smallest thing that I can do tomorrow? What is literally the most minuscule thing that I could do tomorrow or right now that will begin to work towards that? And rinse and repeat. Okay. Unhappiness and depression is a signal, not a symptom. That's the thing to understand. Okay. And this then leads into the fact that emotions are survival tools. And this was a beautiful insight from Dr. K. Right? So emotions really evolved to help us survive. They're not there to torment us. Like, their biological purpose is not to make you miserable. Their biological purpose is to tell you something. They are a feedback mechanism. Okay? So sadness, fear, anger, weakness, depression, etc., right? These are signals that something is wrong. They're not the problem to be fixed. They are telling you that something else needs to be fixed. Okay? And here's the irony. The goal is not to eliminate negative emotions entirely, because you never will. You will shift that goalpost, and that is the journey of life. Is that right now you are unhappy because your finances are garbage, your career is terrible, you're in a bad relationship, you have terrible friendships, whatever it is. You solve your friendships, you still got the next ones. But then there's going to be problems with these friends eventually too, that you have to have difficult conversations. Like, it's going to continuously move the goalpost of what is causing the negative emotion, but you are training yourself all along the way to go, oh, negative emotion. What am I feeling? I'm feeling sadness. Okay, so sadness is because something is not fulfilling, right? There's a level of hopelessness. There is no end. Okay, so what do I want the end to be? How do I work towards that? Right? Oh, I'm angry. Okay, so what is anger telling you, right? There is some form of boundary that was broken or crossed, right? Like, you get angry when someone accuses you of something that you didn't do, or when somebody calls you a name that you didn't, that is inaccurate, right? Like, these are things that might make you angry. So there's a boundary that was crossed. So what do? You can either adjust the boundary, or you can get with the person to say, hey, here's the boundary that you crossed. Right? So you're never going to eliminate these things, right? There's also a common misconception that emotional people are less logical and capable, which is also incorrect. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to identify the action steps that solve each one. Okay. So your goal is not to eliminate emotions. It's to learn to interpret what each means, and then what steps you need to take to overcome it. Okay. So the first step, what is this emotion trying to tell you? Okay. So like I said, sadness is telling you that something is unfulfilling. That's why it feels like hopelessness. Anxiety means that you have too many options. Your brain is too scattered. There's too many things happening. I need to reduce and I need to focus. Fear is designed to keep you safe. So what do you believe to be dangerous? And how can you make the dangerous things safe? Anger helps you establish boundaries, right? These are all the kind of common emotions, and they're all telling you that something is incorrect. You don't try to solve anger. You try and solve what makes you angry. That's the paradigm shift here. Okay. Next one is, don't trust your normal. You might be operating at a 6 out of 10 life. Okay, so according to Dr. K, right? Many people, they live their lives thinking they're happy or functional simply or are functional simply because they've never experienced anything better, right? Their normal is based on a chronic low grade dissatisfaction. Um, I see this as a in the political side framed as like the soft bigotry of low expectations, right? So the thing is people look at their life and they go, well, I mean, I'm not like actively suffering, right? Like I'm not like feeling like I'm under pressure. So like my life must be good, right? Or happiness is subjective. So like there's no standard or no thing that could be better in my life, right? Or you know what? Comparing my happiness to others' unhappiness is always unhealthy. So I shouldn't even seek that out. These are all a level of misconception, right? Because if you are just imposing on yourself a ceiling unnecessarily, then you could just be stuck at a 6 out of 10 life, not knowing you could have a 7, 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 life. 10 out of 10 again doesn't mean elimination of negative things and that it is all, perfect, happy, hunky dory, sunshine, rainbows. No, but it just means it could be objectively better. And so what you actually want to do is expose yourself to other environments and other people who are genuinely fulfilled and happy and go, oh my gosh, like it is possible to do better. And then inquire, be curious, right? And go, what is it that makes you happy in life? What is it that makes you so fulfilled? What is it that makes you feel and present this way? And then turn it inward. So after you've done the investigation outside, almost in this comparison that is commonly deemed as negative, then go, okay, so what's my equivalent? So this person is happy because they love their wife, they love their kid, they love their marriage, and that brings them a big source of fulfillment and happiness. Okay, so I don't really have I don't desire to be married, but I do want that lifelong partner. So maybe I should invest in this now. But how do I invest in that? I actually do that by investing in myself, because in order for me to find the partner, the quality of partner that I want, I need to be a quality of partner myself. So what are the traits that I need to do to attract the partner that I want? And you create this personal development plan to get to the 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 life. Okay. That's the thing, is like happiness is somewhat subjective, but don't just go, I'm not dying and I'm not struggling, so therefore like my life is good and it's better than everybody else's, right? Instead, recognize that there probably is a higher potential or a higher level of fulfillment out there. Investigate what got it for those people, then figure out what that equivalent in your life would be, and then work towards it, right? So the question should shift from, am I actively suffering, or like, am I struggling, to, am I thriving or just surviving? And if you're just surviving or closer on that spectrum to that, then you need to figure out how to get to thriving. Okay. All right. Next one. Stop feeding your anxieties, because every time you indulge them, they grow stronger. Okay. So Dr. K, again, it kind of reiterates that anxiety is reinforced by avoidance and compulsive behaviors that provide temporary relief, right? So each time that you check your partner's phone or avoid a challenging conversation or whatever, you are literally atrophying your muscles that are in your brain to do these things, right? So we think that, okay, I'm anxious, so I did this thing. That thing took away my anxiety temporarily. Therefore, I need to keep repeating the thing to take away the anxiety permanently. Terrible feedback loop, right? Or avoidance, right? If I avoid by avoiding the thing, it's a harmless outcome because I'm not engaging with it positively or negatively. I'm engaging with it neutrally. So that must be better than if I had dealt with it. Right. And then some anxiety behaviors are really just quirks that don't impact your long-term mental health in general as well. Okay. So what we're trying to do here is to practice your exposure and response prevention, right? Like allow yourself to feel the anxiety without acting on it. When you first feel anxious, sit for a second and really feel the inner energies and that inner vibration of what it feels like in your chest, in your stomach, in your limbs and extremities, in your brain, and really feel what anxiety feels like. Okay. And then this begins you to then allow to recognize it moving forward, and then go to like our next level question. Okay. So understanding that avoidance is just like feeding a monster, right? Like the more you feed it, the bigger it grows. So if you get in a situation that makes you feel anxious, you then choose to avoid it. which means then you don't have to deal with the anxiety. Then now your default mechanism is going to be avoidance, which means you never solve it. Okay. So what we want to do is actually feel the anxiety. See if feeling it takes it away, because a lot of times it will. But if it doesn't, then now we need to figure out what it is that is causing that anxiety, right? And then go that level deeper to go, okay, we'll take the building your partner's phone. Well, why are you building the partner's phone? Well, it's because I don't trust them and I think that this thing is happening. So I can approach that by either having a difficult conversation with them. I can approach it by going, has there been any sufficient evidence for me to check their phone? And if not, then how do I look internally to figure out why I have this trust issue and how I solve this trust issue, right? Learning to deal with and face these things head on. The other thing that comes out of sitting in the anxiety is that you will build the resilience of feeling that discomfort in general instead of trying to eliminate it. Because again, you want all of these emotions, right? Again, like I mentioned, like these last few points are all kind of like sub/related points to each other of emotions are survival tools. What is anxiety trying to tell you? It is trying to tell you that you have too much going on. You have a bunch of distrust, that you need to face something head on and focus on that thing and solve it. Okay. Now, next one is perfectionism is the silent killer of mental health, right? So perfectionism is not a virtue, right? It's really a mental trap that really just leads you to constant chronic dissatisfaction, burnout, mental health disorders, etc. It will increase. The studies show that it increases your risk of depression, anxiety, OCD, and addiction by creating these unrealistic standards, right? So people think perfectionism is like, oh, I seek for the highest standards, therefore I'm going to be a high performer, right? And that being a perfectionist makes you a high performer, right? And that if you settle for good enough, then you're lazy and terrible. All of these are just actually incorrect, right? Like perfectionism is just, it's a terrible, terrible risk factor for not only the mental disorders that we mentioned and the mental dissatisfaction, but it's also one of the biggest contributors to procrastination. And here's the thing, you only get higher achieving by taking action and having volume of repetition and success and progress, right? So perfectionism, because it's not perfect, you delay the action because you're not ready. And because it's not perfect, therefore you never actually get the progress and the actions to work towards perfectionism and make you a high performer. It creates this vicious cycle of negativity. Okay. And so you need to shift your mindset from it's perfect or nothing to progress over perfection. It is about the journey. You don't go to the gym once and get super fit. You don't open a math textbook and all of a sudden become Einstein. You don't, take one college course and all of a sudden you can build rockets or do surgery, right? You don't sit there and become the perfection of whatever your end game vision of yourself is in the blink of an eye. It is progress and years and years and years of repetition and growth. And so again, this is actually going to relate to one of the earlier things I said. By identifying the joy in your life, you're going to celebrate those incremental wins, right? Rather than waiting for these flawless conditions and outcomes, right? So every single time that you go to the gym, every single time you sign on to Udemy and learn a new skill, every time that you go to your mentor and show them the results of what you did, right? These incremental wins you need to celebrate, to reinforce to yourself that all along the way, I am winning. I am winning by having an all along the way. Perfectionism is just a terrible, terrible fear of failure and rejection. And so you never end up doing what you need to do. Okay. And then our last component here is that most people misdiagnose themselves because they don't understand probability. And this is one that was a very, very interesting paradigm disorder here, right? So the internet and social media have effectively made it to where self-diagnosis is dangerously common because people are not correlating things correctly. And so like an example that Dr. K gives in here is something like losing your keys. So losing your keys in ADHD. Okay. So 95% of people with ADHD lose their keys like that. So losing the keys is the symptom of ADHD potentially, right? But so what they will say is that 95% of the people that lose their keys have ADHD. That's not how that works. If any of you are whiskey fans, right? All bourbons are whiskeys, but not all whiskeys are bourbons, right? Or beer, right? All IPAs are beers, but not all beers are IPAs, right? Like these things, like it's a one directional. You got to understand the parent category and the child category. And the child category here are the symptoms or potential things that are a result of this top level thing. They are not indicative that you have the top level thing, right? And this is one of the things that was crazy. And so 95%, there was a meta-analysis done that 95% of TikToks about ADHD are false, and that people are reverse engineering their diagnosis without really understanding the probability. Okay? So people think that if I have a symptom of a disorder, that I have the disorder. And this is just completely incorrect. And the diagnoses are black or white. And no, this is not the case, right? So professionals use a differential diagnosis, which is the process of ruling out more likely explanations before jumping to conclusions, right? So there's going to be a cross analysis here. So you lose your keys. Let's just take this as an example. You lose your keys every single day, 4 times a day. This could mean you have an unhealthy diet. It can mean you have early onset Alzheimer's. It can mean you have ADHD. It can mean you're a forgetful person. It can mean you have short-term memory. That's terrible. It can mean you simply don't have systems in your life of how to use of where to put your keys. Like all of these things. So then what doctors and professionals do, or anybody in general, is you should do a differential diagnosis. Going, okay, what's the most likely here? Right? You don't reverse engineer the diagnosis based on internet content and internet nonsense, right? Emotional struggles have many, many, many causes, and they could simply be your environment, situational stress, diet, poor sleep, etc. Okay? That's what we need to understand. And so I just want to reiterate some of these again. I think I gave a pretty good rundown of what each one was and how to go about it, but recapping here. So what is happiness? You are not broken. You are happiness is one pointedness of the mind for an extended period of time. You are not broken. You are simply mismatched with your environment. Happiness delayed often turns into happiness denied. Mental illness is often temporary and treatable. Ask yourself, am I depressed or is my life actually terrible? Emotions are survival tools, not flaws. Identify what each one is telling you and solve what caused the emotion. Don't try to solve the emotion. Don't trust your normal because you might actually be operating at a 6 out of 10. Stop feeding your anxieties because every time you indulge them, they grow stronger. Perfectionism is the silent killer of mental health, and most people misdiagnose themselves because they don't understand probability. Like I said, I'm a huge, huge fan of Dr. K, also known as Healthy Gamer GG. I will link below again the podcast that was released this past week, and I loved it. I highly encourage that you watch the whole thing, especially if you watch what I did here, because Dr. K frames things in a lot of different ways. And the Iced Coffee Hour host, Stefan and Jack, also present a lot of different questions and scenarios that are really, really good and they deep dive on. So I highly recommend it. If you enjoyed this video, leave the link down below and I'll kind of give my own analysis and summation of other pieces of content that I like as I discover them as well. If you like me doing this, leave a comment below. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. I'm also live on LinkedIn, X, Instagram as well. So check me out there. And I do weekly live webinars every single Friday for free, as well as you can join my school community, which I'm looking to build a community of people who are focused on adapting, upskilling, reskilling, and achieving whatever it is their definition of achievement is. I'm not only looking for high achievers and 1%ers. I want everybody on the spectrum that is working towards whatever their definition of achievement is. Join this code community, check it out, and get some access to exclusive things there. So appreciate you joining me. Until next time, thank you.